What's up, everybody? I'm Jason, and welcome back to another short video looking at some tips for the Canon EOS R5. And in this video, it's not just a tip, it's a bit of a public service announcement. So are you tired of your camera resetting the focus position of your lens when you turn the camera off? I never noticed this I did notice this immediately when I first got the camera, but I noticed this when I was trying to do some night landscape work, and I would focus things, I'd turn the camera off, waiting for it to get dark, and then when I turned the camera back on, everything was out of focus. And what's going on here is a bit of, well, I call it a bug, and I've actually reported to Canon as a bug through CPS that this is not the way that the function is supposed to behave, or at least it's not the way it has behaved in the past. So the function I'm talking about here is retract lens on power off. You can find it on the custom functions for menu page. It's called retract lens on power off, and it has two options, on and off. Now, the way this function is supposed to work, and the way this has worked on every Canon DSLR I've owned prior to the EOS R5, is that if you have a lens like this one, this is a EF 50mm f1.8 STM. These lenses, and there's several of these, and some RF lenses like the RF 51.8 STM also behaves this way. Focus by extending the inner lens barrel or moving the inner lens barrel. So when the lens is focused at infinity, the inner lens barrel sits flush with the front of the lens. And when the lens is focused at the closed focus distance, it's extended out. Now, these lenses are driven with a gear train, and that gear train, between the autofocus motor and the focusing helical, and that gear train can potentially be broken if you were to, say, smash the front of the lens into something when it was extended. So the intention of this function is to take lenses that extend, or overall extending lenses, such as, again, the 50 f1.8 STM or the EF 40 f2.8 STM, and when you turn the camera off, automatically retract that lens by focusing it to infinity so that the lens basically isn't in a position to be damaged or easily damaged. It's all the way retracted. And this will happen whether you have the camera set to autofocus or the lens set to autofocus or manual focus. The camera will automatically retract the lens, or is supposed to automatically retract the lens, and only those lenses that extend when the camera is powered off. The bug, as it exists, as I consider it, in the EOS R5, is that instead of checking to see which lenses need to be retracted and retracting only those lenses, it will retract all lenses effectively by focusing them all the way to the infinity stop. So if you have an internal focusing lens like this RF 24-70 f2.8, that will be retracted all the way to infinity. It will be retracted, even though there's nothing to retract, by being focused all the way to the infinity stop. Now, as I said, I've reported this to Canon as a bug through CPS. I don't know if they're ever going to fix it. I reported this almost 6 months ago, probably maybe more than 6 months ago, back in December or January. However, there is a workaround if you are affected by this or you find that this is annoying and frustrating behavior. The workaround is simply turn off this custom function, set it to off. Now, if you do that, the camera will no longer retract or focus any of your lenses to infinity when you power off the camera. So you will have to remember that if you have or are using an extending lens, again, the RF 50.1.8, the EF 50.1.8, the EF 50/40 f2.8, most of them are on the lower end of the Canon product lines, that does extend, you will need to manually focus that lens back to infinity to collapse it before you take it off the camera in order to ensure that you basically can't damage the gears or drivetrain in that lens. If you only use internal focusing lenses and again, this is not entirely that difficult to do if you're avoiding some of the low-end Canon primes. Then disabling this basically is, not going to affect any of your lenses or any of the things you do. It has no real visible or obvious downsides, or for that matter, downsides that I can find at all. So if you found this tip useful, please consider smashing that like button. Please consider subscribing. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.